In this video, we are going to start displaying records of the books in this books section under the form. If we go back to our editor, open our index.php file, and right at the top, let's create a new variable called books equals, and then between the brackets, new book to get an instance of the book model. And we are going to call the method books on it to obtain all of the records. And we're going to import this book class right here as well. And now what we can do is copy the name of the variable, scroll down to the section. I'm just going to close the file browser on the left so we can see things a little bit better. And if I scroll down right to the section books, as you can see here, we've got this icon with font awesome, and then we have this books heading. The first thing I want to do here is to display how many books there are. So I'm going to use PHP tags and then echo count, and then pass this books array to it so that it displays how many records there are actually available. So if we now save it, preview it in a browser, refresh the page, and there we go. It shows us that there are 4 records of the books. But if there is a one book, for instance, if there's one book, then obviously books isn't gonna quite work. We should have singular and plural for these books here. So if we go back to the editor, open the file browser, and I'm going to create a new class called helper right under the app directory. So helper, and what this helper class is going to have, it's going to only have one method, which will basically convert singular to plural if there is more than one item. So we're going to start with public static function, plural, singular. And it's going to take 2 arguments. First of all, the word in singular, and then number of records. By default, it's going to be set to 1. And let's quickly add some doc blocks here as well. And the world is going to be of a string type. And summary is going to be get words in singular or plural. There we go. And it's going to return a string as well. So return string. Okay, and here we return, first of all, we're going to convert this number, make sure that it's always represented by an integer. So we're going to use typecasting here. We're going to typecast it to integer, int in brackets, space, and then number. And we triple equal now, because we're comparing against integer as well. If it equals 1, if it's identical to 1, in other words, with triple equal symbol, then we just return the word. Otherwise, we're going to return word, concatenated with letter S at the end. And that's pretty much everything we're going to have here in our helper. So if we now remove these spaces, save it, and before we go any further, let's quickly write a test for it as well. So under the unit, we are going to create helper test, new PHP class helper test. And here, what I'm going to do is simply create a new test. Public function correctly returns singular and plural. And let's mark it as test. And what we're going to do here is this assert equals, and what do we want to be returned? We want to be the method to return books when we are using helper plural singular. Let's just import this method straight, this class here, and I'm passing through book with 2 for the second argument, so it should return plural. And then if it doesn't, then I'm going to return message as well, did not return word in plural. Okay, if we save it, go to our terminal, PHP unit, all tests are passing. Now let's just run this specific one. So PHP unit, then we navigate to test directory, and we are interested in unit directory, and then helper test. And it tells me that helper test could not be found. And this is because if we go back, if we check our classes, it's obviously not extending this test case. So extends test case. And if we save it now, run the test again, and now we have one test, one assertion, and obviously they are passing. So that's all good. So our when we are trying to convert the singular to plural, it works. Now let's do the same, but I'm just going to actually copy this assertion here, and this time I want to make sure that it's a singular, just number one, did not return word in singular. If we have number one, it should return just book without s at the end. If we go back to the terminal, run PHP unit just on this specific test, and we have one test, two assertions, both of which pass. So we are all good with this helper. So now if we close this one as well, we can go back to our index.php and we can actually use it. So what I'm going to do here is in between actually we can concatenate it. Let's just close this file browser on the left, remove this, and because we're using echo statement, we can simply use comma, then space, then comma, and now helper, and we're going to use plural singular, put the word in, which is books, and we add this count books as a second argument. But rather than running this count function twice, what we could do here is set the variable count equals, because it's still going to echo whatever we are associating with this variable here. So that's going to be still displayed in the browser. And after this statement, after this comma, we already have this variable available. So rather than running this count function again, unnecessarily doing this twice, we already have variable which we can use here. So we have number of records associated with this variable. So we have book, rather than books, it needs to be book, it needs to be in singular. And it's gonna display the correct label now. So if we refresh the page, it displays books. Obviously, if we only had one record, it should display just book. As we saw, obviously test passed, so it definitely works this way. Okay, so that's the first thing we've done. Now, next thing we need to do is start replacing all these labels here. Title, which will be, obviously we need to loop through the records within the books array. But before we start looping, we should probably check if this array isn't empty. So to do this, we are going to start right after the form. We are going to start with if empty and then books. Then we're going to do something else. We are going to display this list of records. And then after the table, I'm just going to collapse this table so I can easily get to the end of it. I'm going to use the closing curly bracket. And let's indent all this. If I expand it, yeah, I only indented the first line. Okay, let's select everything, indent it, and then if there are no records, then what I'm going to do is display the paragraph saying there are no books available. And otherwise, we're going to display the list of books. Okay, so now we can start displaying these records here. So the first thing, before the table row, within the T body section, we only have one row, what we are going to do is use for each books as book. And after the closing TR tag, we are going to close this for each loop. Within this for each loop, we are going to replace the title with echo book title. And if we save it, go back to the browser, refresh the page, and there we go. You can see now we have all four records displayed. At the moment, we only display the title. We need to still fetch the other items as well from the record and display them within each table row. But for now, we have at least titles of all four books. So let's go back to the editor. And for year, we're going to leave authors for now. For year, we're going to do echo book year. For category, we're going to also have just echo book category. And if we save it, preview it in a browser, refresh the page, and there we go. We have year and a category of the book displayed as well. Now, all the other ones, author, price, cover types available in and languages will require an additional method. So if we go back to the editor, we are going to start with the price. And I'm going to open test, unit, model, book test, and we're going to start with a test for our new method called price. We're going to start with public function returns formatted price, because I don't want just a number. I want the number with the decimal points and with the currency symbol. So we're going to start with the book equals this add book. So we're creating the book record again, the same way as before. With the price, we're going to set it to say 5.6. And now I'm going to assert that it equals with the pound symbol, I'm going to be using pounds here, 5.60 when I call book price method. And let me just scroll up a little bit. And then semicolon at the end of this assertion, and then message will say price was not formatted correctly. Now, first of all, obviously we need to add the tag as well at the top to indicate that it's a test. If I run it now, then obviously I'm running the wrong test. Obviously I'm not running the helper test now, just PHP unit. We're going for test unit, and we are testing model book test. And there we go. Obviously call to undefined method price. We don't have this method on the book instance yet. So if we go open up model and book class after the last method, which is a books, let's add public function price, and this one will simply return, and I want to prepend the pound symbol and then number format function, passing the price as the first argument, and then how many decimal points I want. I want 2 decimal points, so that should return exactly what I'm expecting in this test. And it returns string, and let's just give it some summary. We're going to say get formatted price. So we can now save the book model, go back to our test. Now, as you can see, that's what we should receive, 2 decimal points with the pound symbol prepended as this price method does here. So if we now go back to the terminal, run the same test again, and there we go, we have a test, 13 assertions, meaning that our new test also passed. Okay, so now we can use this method from within this list. After the price space, price is wrapped with a strong tag. After this, we echo book price method. And one thing that I should probably also do is cut this from within the strong tags as well, and just paste it after, so that the headings only have bold around them, and then the values are outside of this strong tag. There we go, this way. If I save it, preview everything in the browser, and now it looks a little bit better. But as you can see, price now is formatted. It's got a pound symbol and obviously 2 decimal points and so on. Okay, so let's go back to the editor and let's sort all these lookup tables as well, lookup records. Okay, we're going to start with the authors. First of all, let's go back to the tests again, and we're going to create a new test. So we start with public function returns concatenated list of associated authors. There we go. And obviously test tag right at the top. Okay, and how are we going to start? First of all, we need to create a book. So book equals this art book, and I'm not bothered with any data. It can be any fake data, that's fine. Then we go in for author 1 equals new author model. Let's import it straight away, remove these brackets, and then create. We want to create record using this lookup data, and I only want to specify a name as Ernest Hemingway. So that's the first author, and then I'm going to duplicate this line, replace it with author 2. And this time the name of the author is going to be Franz Kafka, for instance. So we have 2 authors, we have 1 book. Now we need to join them together to indicate obviously these 2 authors have written this specific book. We don't have a model for this yet, so let's quickly go back to our app model directory and create new class called author book. And this model, this class, will only have to extend model class which we've created earlier, and the only thing that we're going to put here is the protected property table, specifying what table this specific model belongs to. So author underscore book, and that's all we need. And let's just add dog block here. It's a string, and that's fine. We can close this model for now. So this is basically, this model will represent this join table between the author and a book. So now what we can do is, going back to our test, what we can do now is start with author book equals new author book without the brackets. We don't have constructor there, so that's fine. And then author book insert, and we're going to insert author ID equals our author 1 and ID of this record, and then book ID is going to be book and its ID. So just to explain what we're doing here, we've created the book, we've created 2 authors. Now we need to indicate that these authors have written this book. So we have this join table which only has author ID and book ID. So for the author, we add in the ID of the first book author and joining them together with the book ID. And then we need to create exactly same insert. If we duplicate this line for author 2 with the same book ID, because we want them to be connected together as well. So now, after both of these inserts, we should have a connection between this book and these 2 authors. Okay, so now what we're going to do is fetch the book again. So book equals book instance, and then find method, and we're looking for the book with the ID of the book that we have actually created earlier. So now with this fresh instance of the book object, what we can do is run the assertion. So this assert equals, and what is it going to equal? First of all, we want to call method book authors. We don't have this method yet, and I want this book to return both of these names concatenated with comma and a space. So Ernest Hemingway, comma, space, and then Franz Kafka after this. So comma after this first argument, second argument is what we are actually testing, and then the message is going to be invalid author formatting if it failed. And obviously if we go back to the terminal and run PHP unit, the test on this book test, obviously we get call to undefined method because we don't have this method author yet. So if we go back to our model book and after the price method, and I'm going to create a few lines here. After the price method, we are going to create this authors method. So public function authors, and we are going to take one argument, which is going to be joined. And by default, I'm going to have it as comma and a space. So let's add the dog block. It's a string joined, and then we go for get authors separated with or by with comma, with joined rather than comma, because it may be anything, and it will return string. So from within this method, we are going to return and we are going to delegate the call to another method, which we create in just a moment, called sort implode. This sort implode, and this method will take 2 arguments. First of all, it will take an array of items, which it is supposed to implode, join together in other words. And the second one is the character that we want to use to join them together. So to get the array of the items of the authors. If we scroll up, you'll have a look at this statement that we've written earlier, this SQL statement. We use group concat, a SQL function, in order to concatenate names of all authors and separate them by comma, which is the default separator for the group concat. And we did it for authors, for languages, locations, and covers. So what we can do now, if we scroll down, is to explode this string using the comma character to create an array. So that's what we're going to do. Explode, we use comma without any space, and then this authors, which is the string of authors separated by comma. And by using this explode function, we are converting this string into an array. Then the second argument is this joint that we want to use to implode these items together, concatenate them in other words. Let's quickly create this sort implode method. Implode, explode, it's not going to be called explode, it's simply going to be array of items. And let's return, actually, before we return, let's sort these items. Because we're using SQLite and MySQL, within MySQL we could actually use order by from within this group by. If we just go by not group by, group concat function, we could use order by here, but SQLite does not have this option. That's why we have to use sort function on this array after we've actually exploded it. So sort, first of all, we want to sort them in the ascending order of the name, so items. And once we've sorted this item, we are going to return implode using the joint, and we pass our items array. So that's all we're going to do from within this sort implode. So first of all, we exploding this string, because this string may be something like this. I'm just going to copy these names here. Just copy all this to show you roughly what it might look like. So this string might be something like this, but without a space after comma, because that's how this group concat would join all these names. So this is what we're getting. Using explode, we're indicating what character we want to use to split them apart. So we're using this comma. So that's going to create two records of the array. This is going to be converted to array as such after this explode function is called on it. Something like this. And then like that. So now this array is passed to the sort implode method. This one sorts items in the ascending order of the name. Both of them, they are strings, so E, F, and obviously so they are already in pretty much in a good order, obviously, if we had the same records. And then we implode these records, which is joining them back to a string using this joint which we pass through as the argument. So that's what we would get from within the sort implode, and then obviously authors if we're referring to authors. And this sort implode is going to be used with the other methods as well for all these lookup tables. Let's add the doc blocks here. And joint is also going to be a string. And what we're going to say here, sort and concatenate items. And that's authors. If we go back, now this should pass now. So if we go back to the terminal and run the same test again, and there we go. We've got 9 tests, 14 assertions. All of them are passing, but that's not the last test, not the last assertion within this test. I want to add another one. Now I want to check if I pass through an argument with different character that I want to use for concatenation. If I just copy and paste this entire assertion here, and now I'm going to replace it with the pipe symbol, this vertical line on the keyboard. But obviously, in order for this to pass, I need to pass the same character as an argument in between a double or single quotes. So this now should return, basically this authors method should now return the string concatenated this way. So if we save it and run a test again, and there we go, we have 9 assertions now, 9 tests, 15 assertions, all of which are passing. So if we go back to the editor, so that method has its associated test. It means it works fine, so we can now use it within our index.php. Let's quickly do this. We have authors, after authors, strong, and then echo book authors method. Save it, go back to the browser, refresh the page, and there we go. As you can see, it all works fine. Here we've got two authors. They are separated with a comma and space after using this method. But let's try and let's have a play. Let's pass a different character. Let's put this pipe symbol again here and see what it's going to look like. Refresh the page, as you can see now this comma and space is replaced with a pipe. So you can obviously use any character you want now that we have this method, but by default it's comma and a space, and that's what we pretty much want to keep for this specific case here. Okay, we have no category. We have one category associated with the book. Then we have covers available in and languages, and these are going to be exactly same as authors. But let's have a look at them in the following video.